How many of you have heard of action research before? Quite a number, yeah. So I want to adapt action research to the Waldorf model, you might say. So if you don't know what action research is, hopefully you'll discover. So, but what I'm saying here is action research, that is, in other words, how to learn from your own actions so that you're not having to go back to a reference book all the time, but and so you build up your own expertise, which is a very important process. So how teachers can learn from their own lessons. You thought you're giving lessons for children? Well, yes, but also for yourself. Right, and what I want to do that you won't find in the normal action research literature is to connect with the temperaments. So I gave you the temperaments yesterday so you could begin to be familiar with them. So, going back over it, sanguines, those who take an interest in everything, but not for long. And it's very important to have such people taking an interest in the world. And in the DISC method, that's called influential. People who are influential, that is influential because they know everybody's business and how to connect things together. So not that they're busybodies, but they're just interested in everyone. So they say, look, your interests are the same. You should talk together. You know, it's a very social aspect. The choleric, who wants to get things done and change the world, but doesn't worry too much about the cost or how it affects others. I'm sorry, I just trod on your toes, but look, it's got to be done. Put up with it. You know, that kind of thing. And the DISC system is called dominant. And the melancholic, who thinks deeply about the world, about life's questions, about life's problems, the political system, whatever, but sometimes doesn't notice what happens right in front of him. He's sort of thinking these things, reading a book, you know, can sit reading a book and everything's going on around him, but this is this fascinating book that he's involved in, and there's mayhem going on around, doesn't notice. One aspect of the melancholic, that he's cautious, but also conscientious. That's under the C, under the DISC system, is cautious, conscientious, and I'm trying to think what the other word that goes with it is, but and then the phlegmatic, who likes orderliness and thus does not like unnecessary change. Change if it's necessary, but don't keep changing things just to keep the sanguines happy. You know, it's just, let's have things ordered, and when it needs to change, and there really is an impulse change, then that's all right. But you see, one aspect of the phlegmatic is they like to sit on a seat in the park and watch life go by. They're quite interested. They don't want to get up and play, but they don't mind watching the children play and this or that couple walk past in love and, you know, whatever it is. They're quite happy watching the world go by. So those are sort of different aspects of, and we can recognize each of those somewhere in our own self, I would hope. Can you feel something of that? And some you'll feel, yes, I'm like that a lot of the time. And that one, no, not too often. I mean, I suppose sanguine is one of my least aspects of my temperament, but where I do recognize it is the pile of books I've got beside my bed to read. Dip into this one, dip into that one, dip into that one, you know, and so you can, and different things you begin to recognize. You see, a choleric, when you get things done, you're being choleric. So everyone has that, everyone gets something done. I mean, it'd be terrible if you got nothing done. You know, really into the phlegmatic and did nothing. So everyone has that time when they do get things done. And that they sort of bring forth the choleric element within themselves. And there's a time when everyone does stop and think for a moment. Maybe there's the odd sanguine who never stops to think. But then they are destined to repeat all their mistakes again and again, aren't they? Because there's a certain sense with the thinking of the melancholic, you actually analyze and think, yeah, I don't need to do that again. I don't need to make that mistake again. But a sanguine merrily goes on and repeats the mistakes again because they don't kind of really notice in that sense. I mean, they kind of notice, but they don't take the requisite steps to get past that. And the phlegmatic. Yes, this orderliness, and they have a kind of inner interest in what in the world, but don't express it outwardly.
So that would be the S in the disc system, the phlegma?
Yes, S, steady.
Steady.
And there's a, what are some of the other S's? That's interesting. There's steady, stable. No, there's something. Sorry, I just don't have them just in my mind at the moment. Now, task for teachers. Rudolf Steiner wanted teachers to be able to experience and master all the temperaments, as well as recognize the temperaments as they're manifesting in children, either strongly or weakly or whatever, but and to recognize the temperament as it's happening in themselves, to be self-aware, self-knowledge as part of that. And he also wanted teachers to learn from their own experience. You see, you can't go to a training and say, right, I've learnt all the things. I've got a little book, kete, or you know, that's a Maori word for a basket. And you're just going to pull all these things out and teach them. Think, oh, my basket's empty. Now what am I going to do? You've got to be, as it were, develop something so that you're, as it were, self-sustaining. And so that's the important thing of the whole element of freedom, is to get to the point where you can be self-generate. And what I'm giving in this is a process that embodies both self-learning and the temperaments. Colours don't come out very good on this, do they? The shape of the day. I've tried to make this a northern hemisphere picture. I've come from the south, but I'll do it the opposite way around. It's an interesting, I can remember this experience of when I was in my 20s, I went to Emerson College, you know, and I sort of used to see, if I see the sun somewhere and I say, right, it's going to set over there. I remember getting to Emerson College and just orienting myself, oh yeah, there's the sun, it's set over there. The damn thing went over that way. Oh. I remember, then I thought, oh, of course, we're in the other hemisphere. So maybe when you go to the southern hemisphere, you'll also get disoriented. So I have to sort of get used to the fact that the sun rises here, goes over there and sets over there. In New Zealand it does this. Sets over there.
It does? It rises in the west?
No, it rises in the east. But for me to say, I'm trying to think again, where's east here? So we've got the, yeah, over there. So that, yeah, now I really am getting confused. For east, so you see, for me in the east, and there would be north and there's south. You see that from you can say the sun goes over there and goes like that, because I'm facing south. In our hemisphere, we face north. And because the slope of the earth and everything's like that. But you know, we're still pre-Copernican. You know, we say the sun rises, whereas Copernicus said, no, it's the earth that's spinning. It's dipping in the east. But no, you know, and we'll remain pre-Copernican for most of our lives. Sorry, anyway, here, morning, through the day, to the dusk, the evening, the night, and sleep time, sometimes sleep time is here to here or here to here or whatever it is for different people. The night coming to the dawn, the morning, the day, the dusk, the evening. Those are sort of the 4 quarters of the day. And if you want to put summer, winter, where do you put winter? Is winter here? Or is winter here? What are these? Is that spring or is it autumn? You know, what's what? You see, part of these things is drawing analogies. I'm not going to draw those particular analogies at the moment, but let's go on a bit. We're going to start this process at the end of the day, recall. Recall the events of the day with as much detail as possibly, preferably in reverse. That's what we tried to do, remember, when we had the circle at the end of the day. Go backwards in reverse. Rudolf Stein suggests that because it sort of takes it out of the habit realm. You have to be a little bit more conscious about it. But, and yesterday we didn't exactly achieve that, but one of the things is not to make judgments, just what happened. You see, one of the mistakes that you can do is ask a Waldorf teacher, how was your day? Because they may ask her, wonderful, oh, it's terrible. Those two things are judgments. Ask them, tell me what happened today, what did you do today, or whatever it is. Because that's the question here, what was it that was actually done? Just what happened in the recall. So it's a kind of factual thing. It's a sort of, you're sitting there and you're looking back over the day like a spectator. How did my day compare to my plan for the day? This now moves into a different thing, you might say, into the evening, to reflecting. And now you're making judgments. Today, I had a plan to do this, this, and this, and then something happened that disrupted the plan. And it either went haywire or it went better than what I planned or whatever. You can start to make judgments. You can see there's elements. You can ask yourself questions. At what point did it happen? What was it that made the difference that I didn't foresee in my plan for the day? Maybe you didn't make a plan. You just said, I'm going to live the day as it comes. But so down here, you've gone from the dusk to the evening to reflect and ask yourself questions. So, something of questions. Did the lesson or activity go as planned? Sorry, there's supposed to be a question mark there. If not, where did it deviate? Was the result better or worse than planned? You don't always think it's not always worse. Sometimes something wonderful happens and you think, wow, I'll see if I can make use of that. Were there extraordinary circumstances? Could I have envisaged what happened? How could I have better prepared myself to cope? What do I do now? We've had the day. What about tomorrow? What am I going to do now? I've got to pick up from where we got to yesterday, or at the end of the day, and the next day we're going to have to go from there. I can't sort of say, oh, let's cancel yesterday, we'll start again. Sorry, it doesn't happen. What can I learn from the experience? How do I change or make plans for the next lesson or activity? Take these questions into sleep. So this is a thing that something that Rudolf Stein introduces that you don't find in the normal action research things, is that take it into sleep. And that will come back again to this thing, what is sleep? Why take a question into sleep? We'll just leave that as a question for the moment. And then you come to the morning, and it's a little bit related to this evening. You've asked questions, you've gone to sleep, and in the morning, listen on waking for answers to the questions you asked yourself before sleep. This is your night echo. Try and so before you go to sleep, try and become conscious. This is, I'm seeking for answers to these questions. Sometimes you've made a plan for the next day's teaching, but you haven't finalized. You say, well, I do this or that. That could be your question. And in the morning you think, that's the one. That's the one that I need to do. At least hopefully it will be that you can sort of make a final decision for your plans. But you actually give that opportunity to listen. See, part of it is, Rudolf Steiner says, you have a connection with the children who are also sleeping, and they can give you a few ideas. So you can live with that idea. So this is your night echo. Now, come to the morning. You plan your day incorporating your night echo. And then, of course, you move into executing your plan. Hopefully with courage and conviction that you can be sure about. I think, I'm totally uncertain. Because if you have that, the children pick that up immediately, and it doesn't reflect very well often. You need to, once you've decided, go for it. Right, so then through the day observe. While carrying out your plan, observe what is happening around you as a consequence of your actions. So you're doing something, look around you. How is that affecting people? Are the kids climbing out the windows, or are they listening attentively, or are they busy engaged in some activity you've planned? You need to sort of... so while you're teaching, you've got to also be observing, because you have some teachers can get so engaged in what they're teaching, they don't see what the children are doing. When you first start teaching, you've busy got a plan. I've got to do this. You've got your list, and you're doing that without kind of observing the children. That's a danger. I don't say it happens to everyone, but I can remember it happening. So, going through these, recall what happened today freely in reverse sequence. Reflect, why did the unexpected happen? Was it helpful or a nuisance? So this is a kind of questions and judgments. Question, what can I learn from this? What will I change tomorrow? Listen. What were my questions before sleep? What answers, ideas have come to me? It sometimes takes quite a while before you can actually sort of hear these, but when it does happen, sometimes the ideas flood in. It's a wonderful time. You need to try and get in before the kids rush in and jump all over you if you've got young children and that sort of thing. And it's good if you don't wake by an alarm clock, which totally destroys these things. One of the exercises you can do is to learn to wake up minutes before the alarm clock, turn the alarm clock off, and then you get to the point you don't need the alarm clock, except in dire emergencies. So you put your alarm clock on say, I'll have to be up by then, otherwise things will be dangerous. And then, so you listen to that, then you plan. What choices do I have? Incorporate answers, ideas into my day's plan. So you're still open at this point. You've got a fair idea and all your preparation. It's just now finally putting it together. Execute, match plan to the circumstance. Has a contingency arisen? Otherwise, you don't go blindly ahead with your plan. You just always have to recognize either things are, you made a plan on a certain conditions, are those conditions still the same? Now observe, how are the students responding? What is everyone doing? And again, back to the recall, what happened? Was it according to plan? Reflect. If not to the plan, then why not? What can I learn from this? So it's a cycle that goes on, a daily cycle of gradually learning from your own teaching. So here it is in the 4 stages again, it's repeating it. Top corner, top right-hand corner. Recall openly without judgment. Question and learn. Plan and execute. observe details with interest. We'll come back to this in a moment. We'll go back to this one. And you can begin to see some of the quality of the temperaments involved in this. That when you simply observe, recall openly without judgment, going back over the day, you need the qualities of the phlegmatic to do that. The phlegmatic who watches the world go by. So at the end you need to get yourself into a phlegmatic mood and say, let's look at the day that went past in front of me and build a picture of all that happened. And then you need to go into the next stage, question and learn, and there you need to take on the melancholic aspects, the thinking deeply about it, questioning, and as it were, all the process of learning from the situation. And this is, you might say, is the most important, this thing of creating question. I keep saying again, unless you formulate your questions, you won't get answers. It's through life, if you can begin to formulate your questions, then suddenly something happens. That's the answer. You kind of recognize it. But if you haven't taken time to sort of identify your questions, you haven't had some melancholic moments, life will flow on by and you won't get so many answers. You might get some, but mostly you won't. And then planning and executing, that's when you become choleric. Start the day with the choleric. And then finally, observing details with interest. There you need to be sanguine. So there are your 4 temperaments spread through the day, and you need to be able to exercise them. And if you can think for yourself that now I need to be sanguine and observing all that's going on, taking an interest in what's happening to the various children maybe there. And then, touching on what I think I said the other day, of course, is that typically for a child is sanguine. It observes everything around. It isn't necessarily thinking deeply or otherwise. This part, the choleric aspect, is the youth. They make plans and they observe, so those two. And then adults go more into the melancholy and, can ask the questions and so on and go through those. And it's finally only in maturity, old age, this element of being able to make judgments. And actually it's often at the end of your life that you sit back and review your life and say what you learn from it. And perhaps the hardest of all the things in this cycle is this one. To actually sit down at the end of the day and go back over what happened without letting other judgments intrude. It's so easy to go think that and you think, and sort of make some judgment, or whether it was good or bad or whatever, to withhold judgment. And then you begin to realize an important aspect of being human is being able to withhold certain impulses, to hold them at bay. This is always the ego at work. Hold it at bay. Don't just be overwhelmed by impulses that pour in. Take hold of it and choose when you're going to do things. I think that, there's one more. So, we're trying to incorporate this a little bit in our seminar. So, at the end of the day, we'll briefly recall what has happened during the day, but in reverse order, from evening back to the morning. Then we will share what has caught your attention, surprised you, things that you want to remember. That's an element there of making judgments, of saying, yes, this interests me. And there will be certain questions that arise from that. But sort of linking that also with going to the next morning, because those sort of go together. Before you go to sleep, remember these things that were shared and ask yourself what they mean. Take these questions into your sleep. And again, to say that what Rudolf Steiner says with the sleep time is that then he talks about each person and their guardian angel, but there's a kind of meeting of your guardian angel with their guardian angel, the children, that somehow there can be a debriefing or a connection or whatever it is, and so that it gives you the answers to your question, because in a way it's like your children teaching you. And that is something you won't find in the usual action research cycle. That's something that Rudolf Steiner points to, perhaps rather unique to anthroposophy. And going on, the next morning, just when you wake up, listen to what comes to you out of the night. From yesterday, what you still not understand. Try to formulate questions about what you want to know or to do. We will share these in the night echo times each morning. So that's just a little bit of a picture of using the temperaments and mastering the temperaments for yourself. And I certainly find that for me that this time when I wake up in the morning, I often get flooded with ideas. So I recommend, if you can get to that point, you can find that morning night echo wonderfully rewarding. But it does take time to achieve, so good luck. Anyway, are there any questions about that before we go on to the Mass? Any other questions about that, or even over the morning? Yes, Brandy.
So with the action, with this, could that be applied to this schedule or the routine in the classroom? Is there a sanguine time of the day and a fragment?
That's an interesting question. I haven't actually quite thought of it in that way. Does anyone else? How do other people relate to that question? Do you find there's a sanguine time to the day? I would have thought more a sort of the day is planned slightly, not with that kind of question, but it's an interesting question. Jared?
In main lesson, when you review, that would be a melancholic time, and then there will be some time where you're producing something, and that's choleric, and I think when you tell the story, that could be sanguine as you try and draw the attention of the children towards you.
Yes. Normally people think of these things kind of more to do with thinking, feeling and willing, but it's a good question, and to say any question like that, hold it, and then gradually in your experience you begin to have answers, because you ask yourself that question, you begin to say, so what is the sanguine time of the day? Is it a mid-afternoon or something? You see, the main lesson time is a time actually for thinking. So maybe that is the melancholic time. And it's interesting that Christoph Wiechert, who's been the leader of the pedagogical section, has been really asking this question, saying, too many people in their main lesson time spending far too long doing activities, when this is the time the children should be learning, actually entering into the thinking processes that belong to the morning, and people are busy doing activities far too long, rather than that coordinates and brings the class together. They keep on going for too long. So, yes, these are interesting questions, and it's nice to put it in that way. But, thank you.
I had just been reflecting on the early childhood arc of coming and meeting all your friends in the free play time and the sanguinity of that, and then the choleric marshalling the will during circle time, and then possibly again it's story time, melancholy, and then of course phlegmatic and nap time and food, and how powerfully that hits a little one. They just shut down. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Of course, the story time can often be really touching the feelings as well. Any other ideas that people have? Yes.
Just an observation of how valuable this can be outside of Waldorf education, to just live it in my life.
No, it's not special to Waldorf education. It's people.
Yes.
People can adopt it in their lives, whatever they're doing.
Instead of asking my husband, how was your day? Oh, it was okay, and that's it.
Yeah, he gives a judgment. See, straight away, if you ask that question, you get a judgment in response. It was okay. That's a judgment.
So what happened today
Yeah.
is such a different
Yeah.
energy.
It takes a while. You can practice it with each other. Yeah. Okay, so we will go on to